Thank you for joining us today. We have newest Cub Trey Mancini with us. Thanks for jumping on, Trey.
Yeah, of course.
With that, let's get started and go ahead with the first question.
Hey, Trey, this is Tony Andrecki, Marquee Sports Network. I was curious, as you were going through free agency, what was it about the Cubs and the opportunity here that really stood out to you, and why do you feel like it's a good fit from your end?
Yeah, the Cubs were a team the whole time that we thought would be a great fit for me. I have a lot of Midwest roots and went to college nearby, and and the team too. It just seemed like a great fit. A team, where I could move around in the different positions I've played in my career, whether it be first, outfield, DH. I'm always down for any of them. Good to play wherever they want me. So I thought the team would be a great fit, and with the moves that we've made this offseason, it's a really exciting team to play for moving forward.
Trey, Cheryl raced out WBEZ Radio. Welcome to Chicago.
Thank you.
Trey, you're going to be juggling quite a bit, a new team plus the World Baseball Classic. How's that going to handle, how you can be able to handle all that?
Whenever I decided to join the Cubs, I was talking, with Jed and the front office, and especially with me going to a new team, we thought it might behoove me to be there the whole time with the team, especially since I'm going to be a kind of more veteran presence in the clubhouse. So, I probably will be better for me to stay there all spring, and get to know the guys and be there.
You originally were supposed to play for Italy, right?
Yes, originally. And that's partly my fault because I knew going into free agency, being on a new team, a lot of times when you're, around a new team and wanting to get to know the guys, it's important to be there all the spring. So, that's on me for not holding off until I knew what situation I was going into.
Trey, this is Megan Monmere with the Chicago Tribune. Can you describe just what it was like for you and what you learned from getting traded from Baltimore to Houston, and maybe kind of what you learned about yourself during those 50-some games that you played with Houston?
Yeah, I was with Baltimore for a long time, and got to Houston, had a really, really good first few weeks, and then once September rolled around, just started struggling a bit at the plate, and unfortunately that rolled into October too. So, I think with everything going to a new place, I handled it all well. It was just kind of unfortunately slumped at the wrong time and got in some bad habits at the plate mechanically, but you learn a lot, and I think I powered through really well and ended up, we won the World Series, which was amazing. And I got to contribute in the end there. It took a while, but you got to contribute towards the end. So you learn a lot. You have to stick through those tough times. And even when you're not feeling great, you're playing for something much bigger than yourself. And that's something I knew even before that, but especially whenever you're going, when you're going through it, it's tough, but you have to stay the course because your number is going to be called, when you least expect it. And that's what happened in Game 5 of the World Series. When Yuli went down, you got to be ready every time.
Hey, it's Ryan Herrera, CHGO. You mentioned the Astros, but coming from them, a team just won the World Series and is in contention every year, to a team like the Cubs that's kind of in a transition phase. What was the plan, I guess, laid out for you by Jed and the group as far as like how the Cubs can sort of get back to that level that, the Astros are at right now?
I wouldn't say that a plan was necessarily laid out, but I think with the signings that were made this offseason, that speaks volumes. I have never played with any of the other guys that were signed by the Cubs this offseason, but I've played against them, have such a high respect for all of them. I've been lucky enough to play against them all, and thrilled to be on their team now. So, I think that's a huge step and a huge message that, maybe this won't be a long process, and I think we can get things turned around really quickly.
Hey, Trey, it's Jordan Bastion of MLB.com. When they signed Hosmer, what was the communication like with you? Because I think from the outside, it was like, oh, here's Eric Hosmer. Maybe that closes the book on acquiring you. But what was their communication, and how did they explain that situation after they brought him on board as well?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I can play at different places, either corner outfield, first base, or DH, and that's going to be my role, is moving around. It'll probably depend on who's pitching on the other team. Whether or where I'm playing is going to depend on that. So, and that's what Rossy told me when I talked to him on the phone. And I told him, I don't care where I play at all. I like playing wherever you want me, I'm there.
Hey Trey, Maddie Lee from the Sun Times. Building off of Megan's question, even taking it back further, the last few years have been a wild ride for you. Just when you look at fighting cancer and coming back so strong, and then winning a World Series, what have you learned about yourself over that time?
Yeah, you learn a lot whenever you get diagnosed with cancer and you go through it. Before I went through any of that, baseball slumps were the biggest issue I had ever faced in my life. And I'm lucky to say that, that was the biggest problem that I had, but it puts a lot of things in perspective. I haven't changed a lot as a player. I'd say I still have the same intensity, still really want to do well and contribute and, be a huge impact on the team. But it does, make you realize that what a real problem is and what a baseball problem is. And you can get through any of them. And it's given me a lot of perspective, but I'd still say I have the same exact drive and will to do well as a player. But definitely gives you a new lease on life, I'd say. And definitely, with this, I call it a second chance, because it was, pretty high risk cancer at the time and aggressive, and I wasn't sure what my outlook was going to be. So with this second chance, I'm trying to make the most of it.
Hey, Trey, it's Jay Cohen with AP. You mentioned the Cubs talking to you about your clubhouse presence and stuff. When someone, and obviously you have a reputation for being a good clubhouse presence, when someone says that to you, what does that mean exactly to you? How do you be a good clubhouse presence?
I always try to embrace everybody, treat everybody the same. I'd say, whether you're making your debut that day or you've been playing in the majors for 15 years, I try to treat everybody the same, offer advice and try to help out, because experience matters at this level. When I was a rookie, I sought out the advice of all the veterans that were on the team, like, Mark Trumbo, Adam Jones, Chris Davis, a lot of guys, JJ Hardy, the list goes on. And that helped me a lot grow as a player. And, when you're older, you gain experience. You want to give the knowledge that you've gained from those before you and from playing to the younger players. So I just try to be approachable and treat everybody the same.
If I get one, this is, I don't know if this factored in your equation at all, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts. First year in the National League, there's obviously not as much difference between the leagues anymore with the DH and stuff like that, but you are seeing a group of pitchers that you aren't as familiar with. Was that something you thought about at all? Is that something you were maybe even excited about or anything? Like, did that factor in at all?
No, I wouldn't say it factored into the decision, but it is interesting going to a new league and being a little less familiar with some of the guys, and that can definitely be a good thing. And I'm lucky enough to have gotten to play in every stadium except for the Giants Stadium and Dodger Stadium. So excited to go there this year too. But yeah, it's definitely kind of new and exciting to be in a new league.
Hey, Trey, Andy Martinez from Marquee Sports Network. I'm curious if you've reached out to, or if any current Cubs have reached out to you, and what the communications have been like, and what you guys have spoken about as you join this new team.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple guys. Jan Gomes reached out and welcomed me. I talked to Dansby. I lived in Nashville for a few years, and Dansby was living there at the time too, and we trained together at Vanderbilt. So I talked to him a little bit, and Hosmer reached out to me too. And yeah, so I've talked to those three so far. And funny enough, I've actually never played with anybody on the team before, which is pretty crazy with how small the baseball world is. The only one is Michael Rucker. Was a Rule 5 pick in Baltimore's spring camp, I think in 2020. So he's the only person that I've been in the same dugout with. So that's really exciting too, to get to play with a whole new group of guys.
Hey, Trey, Sahadev Sharma with The Athletic. You talked about cancer and the recovery from that. I'm curious, when did your body start feeling like how it did pre-cancer, or if it has your full recovery baseball wise?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer because I'd say my answer has changed throughout. Like if you would have asked me that in March of 2021, I would have said I was fully recovered, but I wasn't. My leg strength was not even close to where it was beforehand. And I would say maybe like earlier this year was or last season. When I say this year was probably when I felt like I was like fully back physically. After having another off season of just normal training, a year removed from having cancer, I would say that's when I really felt like I was fully back to where I was pre-cancer. It was mostly the leg strength, to be honest. That was the last thing to come back. It definitely took a toll on my strength in my legs. And as the season goes on, it can be reflective of that. When you don't have a lot left in the tank, your legs are extremely important to hitting everything you do. So, having my legs back under me is pretty important.
Trey, with your story and your perspective, have you reached out to Liam Hendricks just with what he's going on?
Yeah, I did actually. I was able to get his phone number and just reached out and said, if you need any advice, I'm here. And it was on the day of his first treatment. So he, said, thanks so much. He had just gone with the treatment and he said he was going to circle back with me. Obviously different chemos, but at the same time, you're not going to be feeling ideal whenever you're going through it. So I wanted him to know I have some advice, at least on what makes you feel better during chemo and how to get through it a little bit better.
Trey, you mentioned, not really much familiarity with players on the roster, but I'm curious what your thoughts have been and impressions have been of Wrigley Field. I know you've only played there a couple of times, but what have your thoughts been of the field and maybe of the fan base that you're coming to here?
Yeah, it's incredible. My first time at Wrigley was the summer of 2004, I believe. One of my best friends from growing up was a diehard Cubs fan, and we went up to a couple games that summer. I remember wearing a Matt Clement goatee to one of the games. They gave it to everybody in the stadium back then. So I have a picture of me with the big goatee on my chin. The place was magical. And I remember that as a kid there, it's hard to replicate that feeling. Like when I was in the AL, I'd always say Fenway has a certain feel about it. And I'd say the same thing about Wrigley. I finally was able to get to play there this past June, I believe was when it was. Just incredible. I mean, what a great place. And I'm so excited that it's my home park now.
Trey, a lot was made of Baltimore moving back the left field fence. How much did you notice that impact on your offense, and how, I know you got a few months in Houston, but how nice will it be to be in a park where, with, I guess, normal dimensions?
Yeah, I'm definitely at my best when I'm sticking in the center of the field. And I think Wrigley is very well suited for that. When I'm gap to gap, not trying to pull the ball too much, and that's where I've got to live there. And that's what I've really been trying to get back to, especially this offseason. If there's anything that I was addressing, it's that, hitting the ball to right center with authority. For whatever reason, I wasn't doing it last year. And I was pulling the ball pretty decently, but like you said, that didn't coincide well with the wall in Baltimore. And I was on record a few times complaining about it. And I'm sorry to, Mike Elias and Sig in Baltimore for doing that. But yeah, I wasn't thrilled with the change, obviously, as a right-handed hitter. But if you look at the year last year, it helped the pitching staff out a lot. It was a big turnaround, and I think it helped the team a lot too. And especially since they have kind of a lefty lineup. Now I'd say it's suiting the team well, but yeah, as a right-handed hitter, it kind of crushed me.
Trey, did Dustin Kelly or anyone from the hitting group already start sending you kind of thoughts and what they saw? I know you're going to do your own analysis down the stretch, but what's that been like?
Yeah, so Dustin reached out this morning, actually. So we're going to talk, in the next couple of days, actually. I'm going to tell him what I've been doing, and he's going to give me a rundown of everything they've been doing. I'm really excited for that. I always love talking hitting, hearing different people's perspectives on hitting. It's one of my favorite things. So I'm really excited to get to know him and talk to him about all that.
Trey, are you a big video guy? Like, how do you kind of self-assess, especially in season?
Yeah, I'd say to a degree. I'm better whenever I'm just not thinking anything at the plate. So I do, video is so useful. I love having information. you know, and working on that in the cage. But for me, it's being able to do that in the cage and provide myself with muscle memory, and then kind of washing it and going out there and competing. You know, there's a fine line between doing that. And if I'm able to do that, it's, you know, pretty good results. So yeah, I always love information, seeing video feedback. Obviously the video doesn't lie. It'll tell you if there's any deficiencies, but you know, I try to address all that in the cage and then go out there and just compete when I'm, you know, because if I'm up at the plate thinking about anything too crazy, you know, against these pitchers, it can be pretty tough. So I try to separate the two a little bit.
Hey, Trey, this is Patrick Mooney from The Athletic. I know you were asked about like what clubhouse leadership means to you, but I was wondering, like, what did Jed and Ross articulate to you in terms of what this Cubs team needs and like how you can help in those areas?
Yeah, I mean, so just from playing them last year, and I played with Michael Givens in Baltimore for a while. You know, from what I saw and what he said, you know, he said there's a lot of young talent on the team, and it's an exciting team, but it was just kind of experience, I think, was you know, lacking a bit, and especially with the signings we made this offseason and experience that was added. I think when you have a lot of exciting young talent meshed with some of the right veteran guys, that can be a great mix, and that can really propel, especially the younger guys, forward. You know, because those younger guys with a lot of talent and not a lot of experience, you know, how quickly they grow is very important to the team's success. So I think it's just getting the right mix of people in there, and I think that we've certainly done that, and I'm excited for us all to be in the same clubhouse and get it started.